there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to part 2 of the documentary, The State of Our Union. The state of our union is in dire straits right now, folks. Let's just face the facts. I'll explain this to you. The government does not care what you think. The government only wants to enforce its tyrannical policies against you. We used to be a government for the people, by the people. But now, it's a government against the people, who wish to enslave the people. I encourage you to continue to watch this film, because we're going to go into now how progressivism, socialism, and communism has infected the body politic up to this point. I think it's important to understand that there are 4 elements involved here. One is global communism. Now, what do I mean by global communism? Global communism has been around since the inception of the philosophy by Karl Marx. Well, it's been wafting its way through the globe for as long as it's been around. Now, let me just say this. The theory was a nice thought. Equality, equal pay. Everybody is taken care of by the government. Unfortunately, it never will work, because it does not allow free enterprise to basically promote the system. Okay? You need free enterprise in order for any system to work. Why do you think Russia fell? Why do you think China is in the possibility of falling? The only reason why it hasn't is because of the government's brute strength. Okay. Now, what about point 2? And we're going to go into this even more. Global business. Okay? We're talking global capitalism. Now, you have communism and capitalism colliding with each other at the same time, which sparks violence. It sparks turmoil and everything else. But they also kind of marry together. I mean, I want you to think about this real quick. George Soros is a communist, okay? If not outright socialist. Half of these European leaders believe in communism and some form of socialism. Adolf Hitler was a socialist, okay? Left-winger, okay? Some of these big-name businessmen, they're communists and socialists. Al Gore. Need I go on? Pretty much everybody that's part of the whole New World Order cabal is either involved somewhat as a leftist or a communist or something of that nature. They believe in totalitarianism. Now, what about the other elements? You have those two, global capitalism and global communism. But what about the other? Here's the other. It's the state of the people, us. The people have become apathetic, lazy, dependent upon their government. Instead of taking initiatives for themselves, they expect the government to give them a Scooby snack. Let me explain something to you people. Nothing in life is free. You have to earn it. If you want to be successful, you have to work hard at it. No one's going to give you a silver spoon for anything. Now, what about the 4th and final point? Well, it's near the end of times. I didn't want to go religious, but I have to go religious. I'm a God-fearing man. It represents the end of times. What's happening now is the beginning of that period. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not. You can be an atheist for all I care. If you're an atheist, fine. Look at it. Look at the facts. 2012 is right around the corner. We're having massive earthquake swarms. Yellowstone could go up anytime. Hey, these are all theories, right? But I know one thing is a fact. The second coming of Jesus is just around the corner, folks. So if I were you, I'd get real close to him. Okay, without further ado, we have special guests on this section of the documentary. We're going to have Beck, and a published author explaining how socialism and communism is making its ugly appearance in American politics. God bless you, and thank you for tuning in.
If you want to stand as a guardian of freedom, and if you find those facts and you don't like them, oh well, so be it. They're the facts. My daughter came to me about 2 years ago. I have always been kind of a, USA, USA kind of guy. I love this country. I love the founders. And I tried to instill those values in my kids. Well, when she decided she was going to go to college and she wanted to study ancient history, I said, what? She said, Dad, I want to study history. I'd like to be Indiana Jones without the scary spiders and the whips. And I said, well, why don't you major in American history? She looked at me, and I mean, this was like an arrow through my heart. She said, Dad, I can't. She said, I don't think you really know American history. She said, every time I get into it, it seems like the bad guys show up and then they win. I was brokenhearted. My daughter believed the lies that were being taught. I told her I was going to prove her wrong. She had been indoctrinated. Well, a couple of years later, and many, many books and papers and conversations with esteemed professors later, I discovered that she was more right than I cared to believe. The founding of this country was miraculous. The industrial age gets a little dicey. And then the progressive era, which has all but been erased from history, changed everything. What really opened my eyes was this book. I mean, does it look boring as snot or what? It was given to me by Robbie George. He's a professor at Princeton University. Very respected professor. I started finding out about early American progressivism, and he gave me this book. It's written by R.J. Pestrito, who's now a friend of mine. Woodrow Wilson and the Roots of Modern Liberalism. This is my son. He drew a little picture of me in the front. He's 5. Although it does have a striking resemblance to me, doesn't it? It is one of the most boring books you'll ever read. It is just eye-bleed boring. But I learned things about our nation and the progressive era that I prayed were not true. And I didn't go here. I went to all kinds of other books on progressives. And then I went to the progressive words themselves. And the more I read, the more sad I became, because I saw their influence. I saw what they set up. They started a 100-year time bomb. They planted it in the early 1900s, mainly with this guy, Woodrow Wilson. One evil SOB. Bad dude. But he wasn't alone. The Republicans had their guy as well, Teddy Roosevelt, a guy I thought I liked. I had a bust of Teddy Roosevelt in my house. I use it now as a doorstop. Only the real elite recognized what was going on. Earlier this week, I showed you that progressives, mainly led by FDR and Woodrow Wilson, learned how to use the media, centers of higher education, and then law schools starting in the 1920s to transform America slowly, because they tried to do it quickly and honestly and out in the open under Wilson, but it failed. You see, in the early 20th century, progressives were very popular under Teddy Roosevelt, and then in the early part with Woodrow Wilson. Until their policies really began to unveil themselves, the progressives were the people that brought us the Fed. How's that working out for you? The income tax. Pretty sweet, huh? The idea that they could decide for what was best for you. They would control your diet and what went into your body. Does this sound familiar? Trans fats? They were the people that brought you prohibition. Well, the final straw in the progressive era, at least when they started to bury it, was when Woodrow Wilson decided after World War I that this war could be the war to end all wars. Remember that? Yeah, it didn't really work out, did it? They said that it would end if there was just a giant global power.